Hey guys, welcome to a very special episode of the Artist Notepad. Today, David and I are going to have a really good, open and honest discussion with each other, and I do not want to hold you guys up from that at all. I just said do really weirdly. Sorry, it's very late at night. I'm trying to finish this off, but I've just finished editing the episode. Don't know why I'm telling you guys that either. But basically, there's a section where the audio has dropped out on my end, so that's my fault. Apologies for that. We managed to patch it up by using some of the Zoom audio, so it doesn't sound as good, as nice as you usually get, the silky tones from the Artist Notepad, but it will do. And I really didn't want to miss out on a very, I think probably the most intimate moment that David and I have had on the podcast ever. So I really didn't want to miss that, and we couldn't re-record it. It just wouldn't have been the same. So you'll hear the audio quality drop on my end significantly for a little bit. It's still very easy to listen to and everything like that. It just doesn't, as I said, sound as good as it normally does. And then it will revert back to the warm, gooey goodness that you guys are well used to. So I don't want to hold you up anymore. This is a really delightful episode that I enjoyed recording with David, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much. Episode 53 of the Artist Notepad, the D'n'M Time Capsule, Part 2. Welcome to the Artist Notepad, where we talk artistry, we talk life, and we talk to each other with honesty and vulnerability. I'm Jack.
And I'm David. Thank you for joining us for the first time in a while to once again step inside the D'n'M Time Capsule. But first, Jack, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. Were you talking in like cadences there? You'd like split up your words into little groups because maybe the whole sentence was too much to manage. It was just little bite-sized bits of the sentence.
No. I was trying to make it more impactful because it's been a hot minute since we've done this, and I wanted to do it proper, but I giggled in between.
I'm glad we didn't undermine the impactfulness by questioning exactly how you said it. But I'm doing all right, man. I'm interested to see where this episode is going to go, how it's going to go. But I think we should probably just, first of all, I'm going to ask you how you are, but I think we should probably address the elephant in the room. It's been a while, hasn't it? But first of all, let's see how you're doing, David. How you going?
Just get it out the way.
Just get it out of the way. Be nice and quick, and we'll crack onto the business.
Nah, I've been good, bro. 3 months of this lockdown business, but been very fortunate to go outside all the time, enjoy the sunshines, go to Newtown, have some great coffee every day. Yeah, man, I'm just living it up, living my best life, like that one song.
Good to hear, man.
Anyways, yeah.
Good to hear. So where have we been, man? What's been happening? We haven't really talked about this before the podcast, but I think we should just address it quickly before we go into the D'n'M Time Capsule. Where have we been? It's been some time since we posted our last episode.
Yeah, I guess we owe it to our 5 listeners that we have on the pod.
Don't understand.
No. Yeah.
It's at least
more
6
of you guys. You know who you are. Yeah. Nah, man. But just to be real, I guess we've taken a break, and I think we didn't really announce it on any social media, or we didn't really release an episode, and it just made it seem like we were going to continue on after our 50th special. But yeah, it's been 3 months now, and I guess since we're going to be very vulnerable and very honest in this episode,
might as well start now.
Yeah, we just, in my words, like how I think of it is, we just hit a ceiling with the podcast, and
it just couldn't get any better.
Exactly. Nah, but for real though, like it's just too good. We didn't want to ruin it. Nah, yeah, I mean, I lost motivation, and I think we were both sensing that from each other. It's just that we just didn't address address what was happening. And when we had that conversation on the phone 3 months ago, I guess we both came to an agreement. Maybe it's good time to just take a break, take a breather, just regroup, gather our thoughts, and maybe tackle this thing again once we're ready. And that's how I see it.
Yeah. And we're not there yet.
Yeah.
You know, we're still not sure what we're planning to do with this. We want to continue podcasting together because we love doing it together. But we do need to take a look at maybe ways that we can innovate and improve, even though we said we hit the ceiling. We want to keep doing it, but we want it to still be fun and enjoyable for us as well as for you guys. And as David said, we both just really started losing motivation, and it was like coming around to sort of the podcast time each week, and we had organized nothing, and then it was like last minute trying to throw something together, and it just wasn't our hearts weren't in it, and we don't want to be delivering you guys an inferior product. I guess I don't really want to call it that, but you know what I'm saying. So this episode has just come around because a year ago from now we did the D'n'M Time Capsule, and this will be posting like pretty much exactly a year from that date. And we had always planned to review these questions that we answered in the D'n'M Time Capsule, and it popped up in my calendar, and I just messaged David and said, let's, do you want to do this? And he said, hell yeah, Jackie boy. And so here we are. But just to give you guys a quick...
That's exactly how I said
exactly, word for word. But in case you guys didn't listen to that first episode, and I'm conscious that at some point, I don't know where I'll edit it in, but this episode will also be posted on the Self-Care Project. So it will be on both of our podcasts, and that's because I feel like the content that we're going to be talking about in this episode is going to be relevant to that podcast, and I want to be more open with my viewers on the Self-Care Project about my experience with my mental health, and that will absolutely be part of what we're going to be talking about today. And I haven't really had an opportunity to share that in the most vulnerable and free way so far, because I've been doing sort of interview styles, and so there's not as much time to share my own story. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, for those of you guys who haven't listened to the first D'n'M Time Capsule, we basically answer 6 questions. David and I both answer them. The first 3, David asks me and I answer first, and the second 3, 4, 5, and 6, I ask David and David answers first, and then I answer. And these questions are designed to sort of really get under the skin. Shout out to Russell Brand, my favorite podcast. Sorry, David, it's not the Artist Notepad.
Russell.
But they're designed to really get you get us to open and become open. Gosh, I can't talk. I'm so out of practice. And just really be vulnerable with each other and with you guys. And David and I enjoy these kind of DNMs, deep and meaningful. And the reason why it's called Time Capsule is because we're going to hopefully, even after another year, continue to review our answers and how they change. And so, David, today we are going to start after each question. We're going to play the snippet of us answering that question, which can go for a little bit of time, like sometimes up to 5 minutes. And that will be, we'll play the snippet of what we said in 2020. And then we'll answer on how we feel today in 2021. I don't know if I missed anything out, David.
Yeah. No, you explained it perfectly. I'm just really excited because I haven't heard this episode for a year now, and I can't remember a single thing I said a year ago. So this will be exciting, maybe a bit cringy, but at the same time, very
I don't
excited.
think it will be cringe. I actually don't, because I have listened to it before doing this, just to get an idea, and
okay.
I don't think it's cringe at all. I think it's very different at times for me, and I'm interested how different it will be for you, or if it's quite similar. It'll be a bit boring if all of your answers you're just like, yep, same. Moving on. Your turn, Jack.
Try it. Oh, we'll see. We'll see how it.
But yeah,
we go.
We're going to try and we're going to crack straight onto this. And I say straight on into this. We've been already recording for 8 minutes, so it's not really straight on into it. But we're going to try and cover this stuff quickly, so that because it's going to take some time to go through all these different answers, listening to the old versions and the new ones. But David, do you have those questions up right in front of you now?
Yes, I do, Jack.
All
so
right.
you want me to ask you, and then we'll go into it, right?
Yeah, the first three questions, we'll start with you. So we'll start with question 1, and then I will play my answer from a year ago.
Sick. This is so cool. First question, Jack. How do you feel about yourself right now?
All right. Well, this is my answer from 1 year ago. In this very moment, I feel sad about myself. This year has been a very difficult year for me. Last year, towards the end of the year in about September, so it's been over a year since it happened, I had a massive fall in with my mental well-being. I'd been doing pretty good for a few years. Uni had really helped, and coming to the end of my degree, well, it was just quite a few things happened last year, and basically one of the things that sort of broke the camel's back, the straw, was just losing a job opportunity that I was going for, which was going to be quite, I guess it was going to be quite life-changing for me for the next year. And given what went on with COVID, I'm kind of glad that I didn't end up getting it, because it would have been very tough in the job that I was going to be getting. But
yeah,
I'm sad because I'm not happy with the way that I see myself. And I'm sad because I know that I don't view myself in the best way, and as hard as I try, I really struggle to see things rationally when it comes to myself, and that's just because of my struggles with my mental health, my depression and anxiety. Both those things really distort the way that I see things sometimes, and
right.
Yeah, and I'm sad that that I can't see things more clearly at the moment, because there is a part of me that knows that the things that I think about myself and the way I treat myself is wrong and irrational, but then I still do it. So yeah, I'm sad about that, and I'm sad just that I feel like I've taken a step back with my mental well-being, even though I think I'm sort of at the bottom of a springboard at the moment, and I think that coming back from this particular low, which is, as I said, over 12 months now, even though things are better now than they were 12 months ago, I think that I will have learned a lot from this process. So I'm sad, but I'm also, if I try really hard, I can feel a bit of pride about where I am now compared to where I was last September. So yeah, that's my honest, not particularly happy response about how I feel about myself at the moment. But then again, my mood fluctuates a lot. Right. So if you asked me this maybe on a day when I had more energy, I might tell you proud, but also sad. But right now it's sad, but proud.
Yeah. Maybe if we had this episode tomorrow and instead of today,
seriously, man,
tonight.
That's kind of how it is for me at the moment. I just wake up some days and I feel like, okay, I'm doing a bit better this day. And then I wake up another day and for no apparent reason, things just are way harder that day. So that was my response from 1 year ago.
Wow.
First of all, I don't know exactly how we're going to plan to do this, David, whether we're going to sort of comment first on what we think about that, or maybe just go straight on into how we've changed.
Whatever you want, man.
Yeah.
Let your mind speak.
So I think that there is a common theme throughout, spoiler alert, throughout the other 5 questions as well, including this one, and there's a sense of hope that things are about to immediately improve. And I think the biggest difference between where I am now and where I was a year ago in terms of how I feel about myself is that I'm actually less hopeful. I feel the same way in terms of I still feel like I am in a good place in terms of growth, But what I feel this time around is because it's been so much longer, and I think that I was hoping that in a year's time I'd be in a much better place. But in reality, I'm just unpacking, and I've been unpacking just so much stuff beneath the surface that it just hasn't been dealt with, and often I'm not even aware of. And so it's easy for me to say, oh, I'll be better in 12 months, if I'm just dealing with what I'm dealing with now. But the problem is that I overcome one hill and then I realize, oh shit, there was another one. And yeah, it's the reason why I'm finding it harder to be hopeful these days is because it just doesn't seem like it's getting significantly better. It just feels like it's just one thing after another, and I'll have a good period, but it's always followed eventually by a tough period. And I've had one of the toughest periods that I've had in such a long time happen recently, and thankfully I'm sort of out the other side, although it's still lingering some days, but pretty much I'm completely out the other side of that, and thank God for that, because it was just horrible. And it's just really difficult because I never know when these things are going to come. Like, when you don't know what is even being triggered, like you can't work out what's triggering it. If that makes sense. Like you can't plan to not be triggered by something that you don't know there is a trigger for. Like I don't know until suddenly I hear someone say something and it calls back a childhood memory, and I go, oh great, more trauma. And like I say that lightheartedly, but it is really the case, is that I feel like I keep uncovering more and more things, and I'm like, that's another thing that like clearly hurt me as a child, which I've never really given the attention that it deserved, and because I just wasn't aware of the impact of that thing. And so how I feel about myself right now, in this very moment, as I began the answer is, I probably feel like I'm stronger than I felt a year ago because I've had to go through more. And the fact that I just continue bouncing back, but like, I don't necessarily have any optimism about that strength, because if all I'm using my strength for is fighting back, like it's kind of just like, you struggle to find hope and you struggle to find purpose in a fight, which feels like you're just swimming against the tide to stay in one place as opposed to actually get somewhere. And I know I'm getting somewhere, but I can't really tell from this micro view. You can only really see it from the macro view when you zoom out and you look where you were and where you are now, and you go, wow, I have come a long way. But, between the days, the weeks, the months, it doesn't necessarily feel like a lot of progress. And so... yeah, I'm not I haven't been in the best place, particularly towards the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks of lockdown. For some reason, they've just really started getting to me. And I've heard a few people say similar things, which is interesting, that there seems to be like a collective shift in consciousness regarding the lockdown in the last sort of 5-6 weeks. And I'd be interested to hear maybe your thoughts on that, David, but a lot of people seem to be all of a sudden really struggling. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it's just been like, I think everyone has their moment where COVID begins to affect them a lot. And that's definitely happened to me. I've just felt very disconnected from people over the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks. And I've been doing my best to reach out to people and have calls and chat to my friends and everything. But I will later on probably get into some more optimistic parts about where I am now, and there certainly is like some big stuff to be excited about in my life. But there's also, things that I'm having to battle against every day, and it's just exhausting, having to wake up and you'd be like, oh, great. Like I feel like I don't want to get out of bed for no apparent reason. And it's just, I think the lack of reason is part of the most frustrating bit. It's just like, why do I have to deal with this when there's nothing that seems to be wrong? It's just incredibly frustrating, the debilitating nature of mental illness. But that's where I am now. I don't know, maybe David, I don't know if we want to sort of have a short response bit to each one of our questions. I'm not really sure. What do you think?
Well, I think it's cool to have the response portion as well, but I think I don't know, with everything that you've shared so far, it's just like your reflection of how it's been or how you are right now. And I guess it's like you reflecting the past year as well and having those expectations and things that you're dealing with today that you weren't necessarily dealing with a year ago. So, I don't know. I guess my response is from how I see you and how it's been off the pod. You seem a lot stronger. That's something I can definitely like agree on. Is you seem, yeah. I felt the sense of you seemed a lot more hopeful for like better days to come. Of course, we weren't catching up like week by week, day by day. So
I got to admit, it has sort of been in the, not as a result of the lack of podcasts, but in that period of time where we haven't been podcasting, so where we haven't been catching up as much, that has been the point where that hope has started to fizzle away a little bit. But I definitely do feel stronger. That's for sure. I feel like I feel like the strength is coming more from a sense of acceptance rather than control. And I hope that will serve me well in the long run.
Yeah.
But David,
it will, man.
It is... Yeah. Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. It's time for me to ask you the very same question. How do you feel about yourself right now? And this is your response from 1 year ago.
I think if I'm like, because I like to see, or I do see myself as my worst critic, the critic side kind of sees like not good enough, but the optimistic kind of attitude and posture I normally tend to have makes me go, I'm doing good. The reason why I say that is like, well, I'm happy is because each day that I see is like an opportunity to grow into the person that I want to be. And the mistakes that I make help me learn from them and better myself. So in one sense, I think, I'm so lacking in how I want to be actually seen or how I want to be to others. But in one sense, it's like, I feel like if I look at 2020 as a whole year, I think it's one of the biggest years in terms of like maturing as a person, especially in like the relationships that really matter, like within the family or close relationships, the opportunities that I had to have meaningful conversations with people. And also just think about my next few steps into becoming a grown-up, a man, like a adult. I'm starting to think that a lot more because like you had it last year probably, but I'm starting to have that more now because like my student life is now coming to an end for AIM. So yeah, I'd say that I feel quite good, mixed with like I can do better. I think that's just like the continual want of self-improvement. I don't feel like I'll ever reach a point where I'll be like, yeah, I've made it now. But it's just, I'm always going to be this way. It's like, I'm doing better. I'm doing good. I've learned from that. But it's been that way for a while, I think. That's just like how I'm wired, I think.
So David, that was your response from a year ago.
Wow. I think I agree with a lot of things that I said a year ago. But to expand or like to speak on like where I'm at now, I think I think I've learned to accept days that I don't have or days that I have that are not good. And I'm able to reflect in a more honest view, honest look at myself. I question like why I actually felt that way, why I did the things that I did, why I, you know, like what came out of my mouth. But I think the thing that stayed the same is the optimism to have like each day, like I might sleep or I might go to bed with the thought of, man, today sucked, or, you know, like, man, like what's wrong? Like that kind of thought as I go to bed. But I pray that the next day that God gives me, it'll be one that is better, more fruitful, one that is, has a positive light to it, I guess, depending on the people that I interact with, the workplace, the conversations, how I can, you know, serve people. Like, it's interesting because the workplace that I'm at now, campus, it's all hospitality, and I love hospitality. I love helping people. I love, you know, serving people good stuff, and I have giving them quality service. And I think it's linked with my work so tightly now. It's like, it's almost like one thing. It's not to say that work is my life, because I'm not a workaholic. Like I enjoy everything else in between, but it's like the more I do better at work, or like the more I can improve in my work, and the more I can improve in like how I perform and like the attitude I bring and things like that. It's like it's really nicely knit, if that makes sense. So I think, how do I feel about myself right now? Honestly, I'm okay. I wouldn't say like, oh, I'm good. I'm doing good. Like I wouldn't like tell myself that, but I'm like, I can do better. Let's do better. So, yeah.
What exactly do you want to do better in?
I always thought of myself as like a great people person, but I think in the past year I've faced more hurdles with closer relationships. As much as it's improved so much, I think maybe lockdown plays a part in it, but to be able to communicate and to help people that I care about, there were a lot more moments where I felt like I couldn't do much for them than me being useful, if that makes sense. Yeah. But this is purely for like the ones that are really close to me. I don't know. Like I think I learned more that I'm a type of person, if people that I care for are struggling, then I tend to struggle too. Yeah. And if the people that I really love and that I care for, they're doing well, that drives me to a better mood, or I feel better and I feel empowered. But yeah, so I guess I just want to grow in that sense, but also, yeah, I'm still figuring it out. I'm like, I want to be doing better. I want to be, more helpful to others, but I'm not sure how. And that's where I'm at right now. So that's why I think if I look at myself in where I want to be and how I feel about where I'm at right now, I'm okay. I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll go on to question 2.
Yeah. Let's go. Question 2. What are some things you've learnt about yourself? Perhaps think about your values, your mass, your leadership.
Okay. This is my answer from a year ago. So much, I guess. I never stop learning about myself and about the world around me and how I interpret and interact it. I've learnt that I'm not lazy.
Yeah.
I just need inspiration. And I think I already knew that, but I thought that my inspiration would forever just remain attached to creative things like music and stuff. But it doesn't necessarily. It actually attaches itself to, it attaches itself to work when it's the right work for me. When it attaches itself to intellectual topics when the things that stimulate me, things that I see as valuable. And I think as my values change, I'm able to apply myself more in areas where I used to struggle, like academics, for example. I've learnt that my story has a validity to it, but that it's not special. And what I mean by that is that I used to see my own struggle as some like super unique thing that no one could relate to. And I've learnt that just because a lot of people can relate to my story doesn't make it any less valid or any less important. But it's not some like real special story that like is so like unheard of, you know? I used to sort of almost isolate my own story so that I could feel like it was, I don't know why I got a kick out of the thought that I had more hardships than other people, I think, which is just so not the case. And a lot of people suffer, but that doesn't make my suffering any less valid. It just means that it's not some like special thing that I can that no one else would understand. And what that has done is that has allowed me to take off a lot of my masks. Once I realized how many other people were going through similar things to me, it made it so much easier for me to take off those masks and just be open about what I'm talking about now, about my mental health, about my insecurities, about my flaws, and not feel shame about them, because I know that I'm not the only one. And I know that the only people who would shame me for these things are people who are deeply insecure themselves. And that gives me a sense of confidence when it comes to telling my story and talking about my mental health openly now that I do that. And yeah, I guess what I've learned is that it's acceptable for me to be broken, because everyone is in their own way. I think that's probably the biggest lesson that I've learned that I can think of at the moment. Like, as I said, I've learned so many things, but I think that particular lesson, that it's okay to be broken, is it like flows into all different avenues of my life, and it has like influenced so many things, so many relationships, so many opportunities. And yeah, it's helped me find a much more comfortable place of humility, as opposed to a self-deprecating humility of just like ripping into myself all the time, which I still do too much, but I've eased up on that now because I understand how small I am, which ironically has given me more peace than thinking that I'm more important than I actually was.
Interesting.
And there is a little bit extra as well that I will play, because I found when I skipped forward that there was a little bit more. So here it is. I forgot. There's another lesson that's kind of related that you reminded me of. And that is that I've learnt that my wounds are sacred. And what I mean by that is that they're not for everyone. And there was a time where anyone who would listen, I would tell them all about everything that I was struggling with, and how and I would even like over embellish things. I'd exaggerate things and like try and like tell as many people about how tough I was having it, almost as a sense of like, look how strong I am that I have to deal with this, and give me sympathy, give me affection, give me attention. And what I've learnt is that not everyone deserves, that sounds really self-righteous, but I guess
not everyone you need to.
It's like what we had a conversation a long time ago. I think it was our healthy relationships episode, David, when you talked about how some people are allowed in certain rooms in your house and others are not. And I think that for me, like, I used to just show people to my my basement so early. It would be like I would invite you into my house,
Yeah,
I'd give you a tour, and
go to the living room and then go straight to the basement.
Exactly. And,
basement, yeah.
And like my living room was all really nice and welcoming and mysterious, and then the basement was just a mess. And I would just chuck people in there and be like, "What do you think of that?" And I've learnt that like that basement is sacred, and yes, it's a bit messy, but it feels a lot more ordered when I view it as sacred but not self-defining, and that there's so much to me that people can know without having to know all my struggles. And that doesn't mean that I don't tell anyone. It just means that I'm more careful with who I tell, not because I'm scared of what people will do with the information, but it's more how I view the information, that information isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
It's a really sacred wound that not everyone gets to share. And once I started viewing my wounds as sacred, I think I found it easier to feel ownership of them. Like it's like I took ownership of them as opposed to just flinging them around everywhere. It also meant that when I shared them with people, they could really appreciate them, as opposed to just like going around telling people you just met about your mental health and stuff. And like I'll do that if it comes up, like if someone, but I won't go into heaps of detail. But I'm now a lot more open about the fact, like, yes, I mean, anyone who listens to this podcast, they could live on the other side of the world, they would know that I struggle with my mental health. That's not something that I think is defining, but it is an important part about me right now. So I do share that, but I don't go into depth about everything with everyone, unless I feel like that person really needs it, or if I feel like that person is close enough with me that I want to share that with them, because it's a really intimate experience to go into depth about those things. So yeah, that's the other thing I've learned, that my wounds are sacred and they're not for everybody. So that was the rest.
Wow.
Sorry, that was such a long excerpt there.
That's all right.
Yeah. This is a really interesting
Where
one.
are you at today, man?
Yeah, so just to repeat, the question is, what are some things you've learned about yourself, but perhaps think about your values, your masks, your leadership? Yeah, wow, there's a lot to go off there. The thing that I mentioned there about recognizing that my story isn't like super unique. Like obviously it's my story and it's special and everything, but it's not like any more special than anyone else's. It's not like unheard of. I think that is one of the most important discoveries that I've made in terms of my mental health. And it sounds so obvious, I know, but like I used to carry that like with pride, that like I'd suffered more than other people, and it's like I don't know, it's such a narcissistic way of thinking, I think. And I know I need to be careful the way I use that term, but like I'm really glad that's not something that I do anymore. In terms of the wounds being sacred, like I still feel the same way. What I will say though is I'm not sure I quite realized back then the difference between open wounds and closed wounds, because when your wound is closed, when it's like a scar, you're able to show it and feel a sense of pride, and there's not as much shame, because you can say, well, I'm not there anymore. I'm here. I've gotten past that. It's still there on me. It's still a scar and it still affects me, but it doesn't define me. As I said, I'm more than just my wounds. When you are in the midst of those wounds, when those wounds are still open, that is such a more intimate process of showing and telling about those wounds. And it is nowhere near as easy to not feel shame about them when you are in the midst of that struggle. When you're talking to someone about, like the last few years, you know, I really struggled with my mental health, but I'm in such a better place right now. Like, you can sit there and you can open up and you can tell your story, and it's just like, wow, you've come so far. It's so different to be like, for the last year, I've been in a really bad place and I'm still there. And I don't know what to do. I don't have any answers. This is where I'm at right now. And like, that takes so much more guts, man. That takes so much more confidence in your own story to take someone down into the trenches with you and say, I am here right now. You know, this isn't where I was. You know, we're not going back to a museum to look at, these are the things I struggled with, and everyone goes, wow, look at that. Like, we're here right now. And that's such a different experience to bring someone there with you. And I think I never really understood that, because I always felt like I was over the hill. I always felt like that's where I was, but I'm in a better place now and I'm on top of it. And at least for a while now, I haven't felt on top of it. You know, I haven't felt in chaos. I haven't felt completely out of control, but I most definitely wouldn't look at my situation and show people and be like, this is where I was, because this is where I am. This is where I am right now. And it's so different to talk to people about how I'm thinking, about myself, about my current situation. It's so much more intimate. It's so much more, I don't want to say shameful, but it's subject to more shame when you're in that place now, because someone can judge you and you can't say, well, I'm not there anymore, because you are. And that's just a whole different ball game. And I didn't get that a year ago. And so that's what I realized about myself, is that I find it much, much harder to talk about this stuff when I feel like I'm in it, rather than when I feel like I am out of it. Yeah. And maybe, like, once again, I might keep saying things throughout this podcast which are just like, duh, but like, you know, this is me. Like, I'm someone who I think, you know, like, I think I have a pretty good understanding of some things, but then there's some areas where I just have complete blind spots for, and that's partly because of this brain that I was born with, and that has grown in great ways sometimes, but in other times in detrimental ways. And yeah, so what I've learned about my values is I think that they will never change. I really do believe that at this point in my life, I don't see my values changing. I see the way that I interact with them changing, but I just think that they're just so unmovable. And that's something that I do pride myself in, is not just my loyalty to people, but my loyalty to my beliefs. Like, I don't just like... I always feel driven to be true to my values, and I feel like I have to live a life that reflects my values. And and in that sense, it really helps me just not be fake, like to be a real guy all the time. And I value that so much about myself, you know, and you won't hear me say that often. You won't hear me point out something about myself and say I really value it. But that is one thing that, even when I'm really struggling, you know, like, I can still say that my values don't change, even when the way I view the world, the way everything changes when I'm in a dark place. But one thing that doesn't change is my values. And maybe I don't live out them as best when I'm down in a bad place, but I can tell you for a fact they are still there. And if you touch them in the right place, then you will see them and you will feel them, and you'll know that I'm still, like, loyalty is still there, honesty is still there, like, all these things that I value so much, they are retained. And so, yeah, I suppose I've learnt that I just don't think, like, even if I wanted to, I'd be able to shift those things. Another thing that I've learnt is that I don't know myself as well as I think I do. And I don't know as much as I think I do. And I learn that all the time. I'm always learning that. And so a year from now, I'll say the same thing. But I feel like I am almost learning what I don't know faster than I'm learning what I do know. Like, it's just insane. Yeah. And like, I was thinking about this when I was listening to myself, because as I said, like, I feel like, to me, listening back to a year ago, I sound very confident with everything I'm saying. And I don't feel as confident about analyzing exactly what I'm going through. And that could be a number of reasons. It could be because, as I said, I'm in the trenches now as opposed to coming out of them. It could also be because I've just gotten things wrong enough that I've finally just learnt that I don't always need to speak with confidence. You know, like when things change so much, I just keep looking like an idiot. It could also be because I'm actually more confident, and so I don't feel the need to speak with confidence because I have that confidence within myself. And I honestly couldn't tell you which of those is true. And I think that's part of exactly what I'm talking about now, is that I think I'm slower to make assertions about what is and what isn't, and more willing to take a passenger seat approach to life. Not completely out of control, but not pretending that I am in control at the same time. It does not make it easier. Like some people say that once you do that, once you accept you're not in control, it becomes easier. It's not easier, but I think that the pain passes quicker when things go wrong, because you don't have that shock of like, how could this happen? And it's just like, it's obvious how it could happen, man. It's life. Like, you don't have control at all. Like, literally, we could have an electronic storm come through my area tomorrow, wipe out all my technology. I could be out of technology for a week. Like, that could really detriment the way like my mental health operates for that week, and there's nothing that I could do to stop that. And that's just one example. It could be anything. Someone could die that I know. Someone really close to me could die, and there's nothing that I can do about that. And it's not willing these things to happen. It's just saying that, like, if you think that you have everything in control, I feel like it's so much more crushing when things go wrong in the long term. I think it's still just as painful, but I feel like you're quicker to be able to move through that. Not move on, but move through that pain, because you don't have this idea that you had anything to do with it or that you could have done anything to stop it, because that's life. It's just pretty chaotic at times.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like I can agree with you in so many things that you just shared. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Like, I don't have to expand on like more. Yeah. Maybe after I hear the answer, or like we my answer see, from like a year ago.
It'll be interesting to see how your response from a year ago relates to what I just said. But here it is.
Myself is, I'm a people lover. I love people. I just love other humans, I think. And sometimes with people that I have extra care for, I go about in the relationship in two ways, where I think I can sometimes put too much pressure because I care about the person, I might pinpoint too many of the areas that they might be weak in to try to, I don't want to say try to fix. Maybe that's the best way to put it right now. But it's like where it's like you pinpoint places that they need to improve and stuff. But it doesn't come from a negative light, but it's like out of like wanting to help them. But I feel like in one sense, it's like it can become useful, but in another sense, it's like a knife that stabs the other person. That's one thing I learned, is like, that's one side of the thing of like, when I really value someone, I tend to do that. It's either that or on my end, I try not to burden the other person, like the person that I care about, with my own struggles. And I think I'm getting better at doing that. I think it's an interesting thing is, I think I get that from my mum. My mum has this tendency of like, if she has a struggle, if she's going through some bad things, or she's just having it tough, like she would try her best not to show it to like her children, like myself or my sisters, or even her husband, where it's like she wants to just get over it and past it, and she only talks about it once she's over it, kind of thing. And I think I kind of have that in me as well, but I think I'm getting better at walking with other people to go past a problem or an issue before it's a problem or issue. Like if I see something going or headed to a direction, then I'm able to vocalize it, share it, and trust the other person that I value, or the friendship, or the, our mentor relationship, whatever it might be, to be like, hey, I need your help right now, and walk with me through this struggle. And I'm learning to get better at that. But I think many times, one thing I'm seeing more clearer these days, or this year, was that when I'm really struggling, I try not to burden other people with it. I think it's like, in one sense, it's like to protect the other person, but at the same time, there's a bit of like, I'm not sure if it's fear. I don't know what it is, where it's like, I don't want to hurt you with what I'm being hurt with, if that makes sense. So that's something I've learned about myself, where the value I have for others can sometimes be a knife that I like poke people with, or like hurt people with. Like almost like when you want to guide a horse that you're riding to go the right way, you whip it into form, kind of thing. But and another thing is that I don't want to, share my disease or poison with the person that's next to me, where it's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm using the right words, but I think you can get what
I know what you mean. Yeah,
getting at. Yeah. I guess that hits the masks, like my mask of like not sharing my burden.
Yeah.
In terms of leadership, I'm not entirely sure what that question is kind of implying, or this side is kind of implying, but
Same.
Yeah, maybe I'll come back to that as well. But
okay.
Yeah.
And that was your answer. What do you think?
Wow. It's really interesting, because I can definitely comment on things that I'm like, I've said in the past year. I said in the past year. But also I feel like one thing that I'm noticing just from like the conversation we had the year before and the one we're having right now is, I think we're learning a lot from each other.
Yeah? How so?
Maybe, yeah.
How so? What do you mean by that?
Maybe, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the deep conversations we've been having in the past year, whether it be in like the podcast or right after the podcast when we had talks and stuff, like your reflective like
tendencies,
skills and tendencies, that's really rubbed off on me in terms of like how I look at myself and me questioning how I'm doing and stuff like that. And yeah, I feel like things that maybe I reflected on, we share it, we just word it differently. Maybe that's something that I've got just from listening back to both our responses. I don't know if you agree.
What do you think?
That's how
what
I
about
kinda,
the other way? What do you think about that? Like things that I've gained from you. What do you think? It's a harder question to ask because you don't want to say that. But
because I don't want to.
But like have a go. Like because I agree with you in principle, but I'm also struggling to think of examples. Like I think maybe the reflection, but then I also feel like maybe you're not giving yourself enough credit there, because I think you are reflective, but maybe that reflection is now present in more of your life than it was, as opposed to just particular elements of your life. I think maybe it's maybe a little bit more universal. But in terms of what you've brought to me, I think like maybe it's just general joy, like just trying to accept the little things and enjoy them instead of
That's the like I was looking at the word optimism. That's what I was looking at.
Like I think I've always been,
joy is like,
I think I've always actually had optimism, but optimism kind of points towards the future. But joy is more to do with the present. And I know that like being around you, it's very clear that like when you're in that really free space that you can be in, and Yeah, I think maybe envy has turned to respects and then turned to a natural absorption of that on my behalf. But yeah, anyway, let's focus on the question. So, what have you learned about your key relationships with others, with parents, with siblings? Oh, sorry, wrong question. Sorry. What are some things you've learned about yourself? Perhaps think about your values, your masks, your leadership.
Yeah.
And maybe just like comment on what you said as well.
Yeah. I've definitely, from what I shared about like the people loving thing, I think that's stayed the same.
Yeah.
The points of like being able to share more of my struggles and troubles, getting better at that, I think I can agree that I've gotten better. Yeah. So I have brothers in the church, a friend that I live with right now, that I'm able to have these conversations with. It's like, and it's always like, it's not forced unless I'm like, you know, they would have no idea unless I actually reach out and be like, hey, like, I'm really struggling right now. Like, can we talk? Or like, can we, you know, like, can we pray? Like if it's with a Christian brother. But yeah, I can, like, I'm quite happy to be sitting here after a year, and I'm like, yeah, I am making improvements. I don't think I'm like fully there where I can be, you know, like your analogy of like your wounds, like being able to share your wounds with people while you have them, like that. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Like, I'm getting better at doing that where I'm sharing my wounds, but like, I'm not like completely naked and like, you know, look at all these wounds. Like, I'm not like that, but I am getting better. What have I learned?
Can I just say quickly before you move on, because in terms of something else, because you also mentioned right at the start of that answer about feeling like you maybe sort of, you're trying to help people with their weaknesses, but you end up like maybe dwelling a bit too much on them or making them feel bad about their weaknesses. You said you did that at the start. Do you feel like that's changed? Do you feel like you do that more or less or the same?
It has changed. Good. Thank you for like reminding me, because I went completely like skipped past that one.
Feel free to do it to me as well, because there's a lot in these questions and it's easy to miss out.
Yeah, man. There's so much. I've learned to hold my tongue better. So I don't give people things that would fix them, or like, I'm like, you have to do this, you have to do that, when it's not what they're looking for at that time. So I think I've gotten better at just speaking what needs to be spoken at the right time. I think I'm better at gauging that. And the way I speak to those people that are hurt at the time, or those people that are, you know, can't see an issue that they're having and why they're going through something, like the way I speak, like communicate that to a person has become a lot more gentler and more, I think, accepting. Yeah, that's something I've realized. Because I think sometimes, like, as I said a year ago, it could be really sharp words that I could be using. But I'm able to control that a lot better. So it's not like a knife, but more like a cup of coffee. I don't know. It's a bit more soothing and something that's more pleasant, where it's like, you know, it is going to help the person. But I think what I've learned is that there's always a time and place for the right things to be, or time and place for things to be done. I think that answered the question.
Can you maybe just explain that, what you just said there, a little bit more? There's always a time and place for things to be done.
Whether it be an action, like to approach a person, like, because like I'm speaking in like circumstances where a person that I care for, or like I really care about, who is in a bad place, but they don't know it themselves. versus another person who might be sharing so much with me, but you know, like they keep asking me why, or like just been sharing all these things, but I just don't say anything and I just listen. Or maybe, you know, I see someone struggling that I don't really have a relationship with, but I still want to reach out to them. And like, I don't know, I feel like I've gotten better at gauging when is the right time to approach a person.
I get you now, yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I feel you. Okay.
Yeah. So like, yeah, my heart for people has grown more. I guess it's not only about people that I'm close to, but it's people that might be even strangers. So just real quick, like in the past couple months before lockdown happened, I went on a short inland trip with my church to Dubbo. And then we were around the street, just like talking to locals, trying to invite them over to a convention and stuff like that. And then I met a friend, I made a friend on the street, and I've been talking to him for the past 3 months. Like, and he's a much older gentleman. He's like 60, late 60s, and he's an Aussie bloke. Like, so it's like someone that I would have never had a relationship with if I've never went there. So I value that a lot. So I'm like, there is a time and place, and because my faith, which is my value, I guess those are like where my values lie. My faith shapes who I am. Like, I really truly believe that the time that I spent in Dubbo for like the few days that I was there, and the relationship that I've formed with Sean, it's his name. It's like, it's meaningful, you know, like, Anyways, awesome. I can go down a rabbit hole, so I'll just stop.
I'm sure there'll be other questions to go down that rabbit hole.
So, yeah, I know. There's so much more. I don't want to waste too much time.
All right.
But real quick, like I've learned in the past year, I care a lot more about what people think about me than I used to believe or used to know. So the reason why I say that is I think I'm a very free spirit type of person in some ways, but lately I've been feeling like maybe I care a bit too much about how a person, like a new person, would perceive me and stuff like that. Yeah, and it's just, I think I'm still figuring that out, and like where's this coming from type of thing. Is it because I'm growing up? Am I more conscious of my actions? Is that the result of why I feel this way? And yeah, I'm still figuring that out, but it's something that I've noticed, and I'm like, wow, like it doesn't feel like me, but maybe it's something that I was just blind to. Or
I think it's something that maybe, and I feel exactly the same way. I've discovered that in the last year that I do care more as well about what people think, but I think it's something that a lot of people just kid themselves that they don't. Like, it's part of our very nature to care about what people think about us, and it's one thing to care about it. It's another thing to let it define how you act and like end up acting like someone who's not yourself. And neither of us really do that.
Yeah.
But maybe we would emphasize certain parts of ourselves to fit into a particular crowd, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Like, it's just a way of socially engineering your situation, and as long as it's not entering a place of like, this isn't me or this isn't David anymore, like, as long as it's still you, but you're just like, well, this is the part of me that I think is best suited for this situation. As long as it's not because you love that part of you anymore, or you don't love other parts of yourself. I think it's just really natural for people to just, you know, change the way they act. I mean, like, I always use this example, like the relationship you have with your parents is never going to be the relationship you have with a partner or with a friend or with your kids. Like, they're all going to be different, and you interact differently with those people. And it's not because you're being fake with one of them or the other. It's just because different relationships bring different parts of yourself out of you. And so does different social situations. So, that's something that I probably should have mentioned in terms of what I've learned about myself. Definitely, like, bang on there, David. Like, same thing in the last year. Yeah, I can like relate with this, like so many things you shared as well. Like, but yeah, that's one thing. What else was the questions? I keep forgetting now. Your mask, your leadership, your values, your mask, your leadership.
Your values, your mask. Yeah. So my values. Yeah, my faith defines who I am. But I take a lot of pride into that because it's like, yeah, as you said, I don't think my values will ever change. Like my faith in God and the God of the Bible, it shapes how I treat others, how I think, how I make decisions, and all these things. And at the same time, it's like a constant day or like constant, what is it? Can't think of the word. Day by day, it's just a journey. It's a battle to get better in the sense of like, I accept and I know that everyone's imperfect. Every single person in this world is broken and imperfect. But as someone who has faith in God and the hopes of, the future, like having a hopeful future, I think it's like, I see each day as like a gift, as a like a new day. I don't know where I'm going with that, but just to say like, I don't know, like, my value really shapes who I am.
Yeah.
I think that's stayed the same. My masks, I don't know if I have any. I think like it goes back to the values, like, or like I don't know, maybe it's tied in with what I just shared about like learning about myself, like caring about how people think about me. But like I try to stay true to who I am, like everywhere I go. Like I wouldn't be any different to how I'm speaking with you right now, to how I am at work, or how I am with close homies or friends or whatever. So yeah, but I guess I wear different hats. Maybe mask isn't the right word. I would like to think hats. So you look kind of different, or like it's situational. You might wear a formal hat, you might wear a playful hat, a party hat, but I don't think I hide my face or how I really am. Leadership, it's tied with my like people loving nature. I think, like, I guess I can speak on like church leadership. I lead a group of young adults, people my age, some a little bit older, but it's like I want people all to get along. I think I have valued a big sense of like community, trust, and like openness. I value those things a lot. So I just want people to really belong and feel like, they're a part. And that's a really big part of it. Even though I might be lacking in a lot of different areas in terms of leadership, like organizing and stuff like that. Because I try to take everyone to be a part of, like, everyone plays a role. Like we fill each other's gaps, if that makes sense. But I'm not too sure if that applied to the question, but
no, it does.
That's that. Yeah. All right. Question 3. What have you learnt about your key relationship with others, with parents, siblings, and extended family? With friends, God.
This is my answer from 1 year ago. I think I've learned how to be a better friend in the sense that when I do good things for my friends, I think I always did it because I cared, but I think there was a significant part of me that did it because I wanted to come across well. And I wanted to just look good in the friendship, I guess. And that's still the case to some extent, but I think it is for everyone to some extent. Because we care about the opinions of our friends, obviously. So we want to look good. We want to be admired by our friends. But I think I've gotten better at just serving my friends in general and like providing the sort of relationship that they need, even when it's tough for me. I think when it comes to my relationship with Amelia, I've learnt to trust more. I think I've learned to stop asking what if, because if you continue to ask what if all the time when it comes to relationships, then I feel like you begin to become dissatisfied because you're always imagining this could be better. And I think for a long time, it wasn't a fear of commitment necessarily. It was, I guess it was, but it was fear of commitment because I thought, is this the person who I want to spend the rest of my life with? And once I stopped asking that question and I started asking the question of, am I happy with this person? And the answer was consistently yes. Then the first question became a lot clearer to me. And that's why I'm still in the relationship.
Yeah.
I don't really have doubts over my relationship anymore.
That's beautiful.
Because I'm not always asking who could I be with that would be better, or not that I actually never asked that, but like more like, is this really the person? Like, is this perfect? Is this the one? And the problem is you never know whether the person is the one because you haven't dated every person out there. So like you never know.
That's a lot of persons.
Yeah. And I think once I stopped like making comparisons to some idealized version of what my life was going to be, and that's not like an idealized wife or an idealized family, it's just an idealized life, then I just began to appreciate what I had a lot more. So that's what I learned with that. Another thing I learned with my friendships was that whilst I was allowing people into my life in terms of information, so I felt like I was sharing a lot because I was telling people a lot about what I was feeling, but I wasn't showing them and I wasn't allowing them to hold that feeling as well. And one of my friends, Peter, actually, David, you know Peter.
Yeah, I know Peter.
He said it to me one time when we were talking about this. He said, "You never fully let people in." That's what he said to me. And like that really shook me. And at first I was like angry because I was just like, yes, I do. Like I'm very open. But the more like it just kept playing on my mind, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I let people in to my brain, but I don't let people into my heart. Not all the way. And once I sort of came to that understanding, I started working on empathy with my friends, and all my relationships started to improve to some extent. So that's what I've learned. In terms of my family, I don't think this is the place or the time to have that conversation. I'm still processing, and if there were things that I was going to talk about, then I would go to my family about them. And now is not the time nor the place for that. So, yeah. I have learned things about my family. That's not me being closed. It's actually me just being respectful to them and not like airing any dirty laundry on a broadcast. Because there's still things that are being processed there for sure. With God, I've learnt many things about God, and I still know nothing. I think, I don't know. Constantly changing. That one's too. I've learned a lot, and I've also unlearned a lot. So, I think the most valuable lesson I've learned about God in my life is that He's not some cold, authoritative figure, and that if I was to have a relationship with Him, it would be a friendship rather than a like an employer relationship. That's probably what I learned the most about God.
That's good.
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like that wasn't a particularly good answer to that question, but I'll let you have a stab at it. It's a pretty hard one to answer. So that was my response. There's a lot there. So I wrote a couple of notes down while I was listening because I thought it would just be easier to do it like this. So here I go. In terms of relationships, so I'll just repeat the question. Actually, that might be easier. What have you learnt about your key relationships with others, with parents, siblings, and extended family, with friends, and with God? So I'll go in the same order as I did when I answered that question. Relationships in general feel a lot harder to me now than they used to. It used to come much more second nature for me to reach out to people. Now I feel like it needs to be more of a conscious effort. One thing that I've also learned about myself, which I meant to mention for question 1, is that I am just becoming more and more of an introvert as my life goes on. I used to be like really extroverted, and I'm just becoming more and more introverted as time goes on. And so when it comes to reaching out to people, especially during lockdown, like, and it could be, that could be really all that it is. And it might be a bit unfair to be judging myself on this when we're in lockdown, but I just find it so hard to stay in touch with people. I feel like it takes so much energy out of me, and I feel like I'm doing something that I never used to do, which is leaving people on read. Like, people will send me a message and I won't read it for a couple of days just because I don't have the energy to engage. And I just, like, I feel really bad about it because I know I said that I always stay true to my values, but that is sort of like a mini value that I have, which I'm kind of letting myself down on. I hate it when people do that to me, and I'm starting to do it to other people. And yeah, it's relationships are hard, man. They're hard to maintain. Yeah, and I feel like as I'm getting older, it takes more effort, which I thought it would be the opposite. I thought it would take less effort to maintain relationships as I get older, but now I feel like I just drift apart from people so easily, and I don't want to, but I just find that my close friends list just is getting smaller and smaller. And I know that's kind of natural, but yeah, there's some people who I've really lost touch with that I don't want to, but it comes a time where like so much time has passed, it feels strange just to pop up out of nowhere and just be like, hey, how you going? You know? So that's one thing that I've learned about my relationships, is that they're hard to maintain. They really are. In terms of letting people in fully, which I referenced there, I still definitely struggle to do it. And one thing that I was thinking about, David, was that, like, you sort of talked about your ability to let people in and how you've gotten better. And I do think it's a shame that, like, we don't probably let each other in as much as we could do. Like, I feel like we don't keep it surface level, but we kind of do exactly what I was talking about there's a point where it's just like, it's more telling about things rather than letting each other feel them. And I feel like we haven't really had very vulnerable conversations with each other very often that aren't on a podcast. and like, it's something that I hope will change in our relationship. I hope that and to be honest, it's not just between you and me, man. It's between me and all my guy friends. Like, I do this with all my guy friends. I find it easier to, and even with, like, my friends who are girls, like, there's only one who I've ever really done it with. And even then it's rare. And it's because it's not a conscious thing for me to not let it get to that depth, because I just have so many subconscious barriers in there that, like, for example, I really struggle to cry. Like, because crying is like a way of releasing tension and releasing stress. And that's been proven physically that it does that. And like a lot of men, you know, I've grown up, and at some point I learnt that that I wasn't supposed to cry. At some point in my life, I learnt that. And it's just really stopped me from being able to cry easily. And it's like, I need to just get to the brink of, like, I just far out, like, I've just got nothing left before eventually I can just let those tears come out. And boy, when it rains, it pours. Like, there's no kind of just like I know people who just can just like that, just come into tears. Yeah. And it's not that violent. It's just sort of the eyes well up and tears roll down the cheeks, and they can just constantly sort of refresh themselves like that. And, you know, I used to sort of like look down on people like that, probably because of, as I said, these beliefs that I picked up over my life that you shouldn't cry easily and stuff like that. It's a sign of weakness. It's so good for you and it's so healthy. And I just have these barriers there, which stop me from getting to that stage. And I feel like it's the same with conversation and vulnerability with people. I can get to a really deep point, but there comes a point, even like my experience in therapy, like I've gotten teary once in therapy in the whole time I've been there, where I'm discussing the things that are supposed to be the hardest things in my life, and I've gotten teary once. Like, to me, I wish I could cry every therapy session. I'd come out feeling so much more refreshed, but I can't. And the one time I got really close was when we did this imaginative exercise that took me back into a memory and really immersed me in the mind of 12-year-old Jack as something like bad was happening to me. And I managed to begin to feel that kid version of myself, and that's when it started to get to me. But even then, I could feel myself just snapping out of it and not allowing myself to get that deep. And yeah, I feel like I do the same with a lot of my relationships. I just don't let it get to a certain level. And the only one where I don't feel those barriers at all, actually, well, that's not true. I don't feel those barriers like that is with Amelia. And it's different with Amelia. Because I do let her in, but the reason why sometimes I'm hesitant to do it is not because of fear or shame. Sometimes it is, but generally the reason is I don't want to burden her, because she is, she lives with someone who has a lot going on, and has for a long time. And it's tough for her to have to take care of herself as well as take care of me. And I feel a sense of guilt that she has to look after me sometimes, because, like, if I'm honest, there are days when I can barely stand up. She's come home before and I just have barely been able to stand because I'm feeling that low. And it doesn't happen often, but to have to be a carer for your partner, that's not something easy to do. And so sometimes I feel like I can't fully be open because I hate that I'm so hard to look after. I hate that I have to be looked after sometimes. And I know that that's part of relationships, and you look after each other, and I do exactly the same for her, but the difference is regularity. Like, it's just so much more regular that she'll have to sort of, make dinner, clean up everything, basically tuck me into bed because I'm just like not functioning. And, she'll have her moments too, but they're so much further in between than mine are. And as wrong as it is, there is a part of me that enjoys it because it's like, finally I can do my bit, and it's not just me. It's not just me that has to be the one who needs to be looked after. That's not fun. It's lovely and I'm so grateful, but it doesn't feel fair. And so it's different with her, because the only reason why sometimes I struggle to tell her stuff is because I'm trying to look out for her. Even if she would say, like, never do that, always just be honest with me. Like, I can't help but sometimes just be like, but feel like a burden. And
yeah,
and I don't feel that with friends because they don't have to deal with it as much. They don't have to live with me. They can go home afterwards and decompress. They can go home and be like, far out, that guy, he needs 6 therapists, and then they can decompress.
Me, right? Every time.
But Amelia doesn't get to do that. She goes home and I'm there. So yeah. So, and I went on about that for a while, but that's something that's a big deal to me in terms of things I've learned about relationships with others, is my ability to be completely open, not just open with information, but open with my heart, and I struggle to do that. And I'm really trying to do that better. In terms of family, I'm in the same place. I'm not ready, and I don't think I'll ever be ready to talk about that on a podcast. It's just, it's such a personal thing that I'm still processing. So yeah, I know it's not a satisfying answer, but my answers aren't designed to satisfy anyone.
It's just your answers, man.
And in terms of God, I have learnt that I need to stop trying to conceptualize God. I need to stop trying to apply an ideology or apply a gender to God. Like, I just realized how many subtle little concepts are put into a being who, by its very nature, is beyond what we could ever understand. And that's not to say we know nothing, but it's just to say we don't know enough to own God. And I do feel like sometimes the way God is talked about, like when we say, when we, even the fact that God is like a person, like personified, like, to me, that kind of, like, if we look at it in the Christian sense, like, and not to get into theology because David will just roast me, but like, my understanding is like the very reason Jesus came is not the only reason, but one of the reasons is to personify God. And so why do we view God as the personification of God? Like, God is a being, but like it can't be conceptualized as, like, I hate the way we say he when we talk about God. And some people may think, oh, you're just being like, new age, like bring down the patriarchy, all that stuff. But like, when it comes to patriarchy, there's totally a point to that. Like, when do we decide God was male? Like, and I heard in a mass for the first time the other day, God mentioned as a mother as well as a father. And I appreciated that because, like, I'm trying my best now to just cut down the barriers of, like, to take God out of a box and to just view God as everything, as opposed to, like, in a more holistic of, like, yeah, look, it's really hard to explain, and I'm only beginning to start that deconstruction myself. But yeah, I'm trying to stop looking at God as a thing, because God is just such a ridiculously gargantuan construct. That I don't like the idea that we are creating constructs to put that concept into, like the old white man with a beard, So yeah, that's my answer to that question. There's a lot there. Maybe let's not talk about the God thing, because I probably even shouldn't have said that, because it's so fresh. It's like, this is just the last few weeks that I've started thinking about that. So, but yeah, David, I don't know if you have any response before we play back your answer from a year ago.
Well, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Here it is.
My relationship with others, or people, I think the person that I am, I'm always just myself around anyone that I meet. I think depending on the age difference or the cultural background of the person, I might slightly adjust just to cater to another person. So in one sense, I think I like to just be the person that the other person needs me to be. So I don't really care sometimes. Like, it's a bit of a contradiction, because it's like I'm always myself, but at the same time, it's like I'm happy being a person that the other person needs me to be. So when it comes to relationships with my close friends, I see a need of broadening my maybe like understanding, because I think once I became a Christian and my worldview changed, a lot of similarities and places that we overlapped and where our friendship really grew and blossomed, I kind of left that behind, if that makes sense. So a lot of close friendships that I have with a lot of my non-Christian friends are built on years of like loyalty and time spent together. So a part of me has to have a broader understanding and acceptance of what other people think. And I love that about different relationships that I have, because everyone has a different background and worldview and belief in a higher power, or maybe they don't believe. But yeah, so having like I understood, like, one thing I learned is every person that I hold dear to in terms of friendship, like, they have different views, and it challenges my view on what I believe, but also helps me and motivates me to sharpen what my truth is, or my view of things are, so that if I'm able to share with them my view, it just helps us get to a destination where we're able to kind of journey together. And maybe even, like, I'm able to share my view and they're able to maybe learn something from it or take it as their truth as well.
For sure.
With my parents, I'm seeing more and more they're getting older, and I'm coming to an age of becoming more and more independent and a a man or an adult. But I think I'm starting to think how I can take care of them better. In terms of my mom, me and my mom's relationships always been quite good. In my high school years, she's always nagged me, and I'm always the one who's like seeing why I'm so late, or 20 missed calls kind of relationship. And then now it's more of like a close friendship where it's like, of course there's still a respect because like she's my mother, but it's like she understands I'm grown into a adult that understands what life is going to look like, and I respect her as someone who's poured out everything so that I can have a better life than she did. And in terms of my dad, I think so much improvement this year.
Yeah.
Past wounds or past hurts that I've had, it always comes up when we have disagreements or arguments with each other. But one thing I've really learnt is, and it's from the Bible actually, so I understand that I need to respect his word a lot more, is that he like has a design for how things will work better. And the key thing that I learned about my relationship with my parents is I just have to honor them more. So what I mean by when I say that, it's like, yeah, they're my parents. Yeah, they're, older. Yeah, I'm getting older too, so I'm my own person. But they're still my parents at the end of the day. You see all their mistakes, all the things they've done wrong, or all the hurts that they've given you. But at the end of the day, he's still my father. He's still the one who gave me life.
Yeah.
So when I see my dad and I give him the honor and respect that he deserves as my father, I think we're able to have a mutual respectful relationship. Especially with the Korean culture, I think it ties a bit deeper in the sense of there's a sense of hierarchy and seniority that is under a household, where it's not authoritative to the point where it's like he's a king, but it's more so like he's my father. So it's like I respect him and his words, and even though I disagree with him, I still listen and try to learn his perspective. And if I show him that honor and that respect, then he's able to respond in the right way. And that's just the type of background that he's grown up in. So with that understanding, I think we've come a long way from where we used to be. So that's a big lesson. Siblings, I learnt, it's so important. I think it's so, so important. And I've been so grateful that I've been spending every Sunday after quarantine eased up a bit, to once we started to be able to go out to restaurants and cafes and stuff, I've been spending every Sunday afternoon with my two sisters. Shout out to Joanna and Sharon. But we've been spending every Sunday together, even though we might not talk about things. We might just go out and spend some good quality time, have good food, good coffee, catch up. Also just like share our thoughts on like what is just going on in each other's lives. We live in the same household. I'm still living under the same roof, but many times we're too busy just living our own lives that we don't slow down to see what the other person's doing. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I'm still under the same roof as them. But the more I think about what it's going to look like in the next few years of me, like potentially moving out, which I don't think I've shared with you as well, or the listeners, but I'm thinking of moving out in the next year or so. So that's something as well. Extended family. Blood is thicker than water, Jack. And that really speaks. Like, I think, so what I mean by that is I only have one set of cousins. Is that the right way to put it? Like, I have my uncle and his family living in Sydney as well. And my oldest cousin now has a son, and my uncle went through health problems, to be precise, like cancer for the last year.
Wow.
And it's interesting. It's an interesting, like, I'm okay to share this because he's in a much better state now, but he was going through lung cancer and he's never smoked a pack of cigarettes or like one cigarette in his life. So it was just a weird cause. We don't know what happened and how that happened, but it's an interesting thing where my extended family, there's my uncle who's in a much older state and an older part of his life, and now there's the next generation of chuns that are coming. And it's an interesting thing where I feel like God is kind of showing me, you know, family is important and you should be keeping them close and be praying for them, praying over their lives, and really cherish the time that you can spend with them while they're still here. And one end, there's the start of someone's life, and my nephew's only a year and a bit old, and then my uncle's like in his mid-60s, early 60s, so he's not that old, but he's on the latter half, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Is he on your mom's side or your dad's side?
my dad's side. So it's my dad's, he's my dad's older brother. But yeah, so he's in a better state now, but he's I learned to love him more. He's every time we have a family gathering, he's like the king of dad jokes and like puns. But that's how we can really
Sounds
connect.
like my type of guy.
Legit. I'm the only person laughing in the room. Everyone else kind of ignores him, but he's always ready to have a shot at a dad joke. And he's just, yeah, he's a great guy. But yeah, blood is thicker than water kind of thing.
Yeah.
My relationship with God, I learned that when I truly set him at the center of everything that goes on around my life, everything really just falls into place. Whether it be relationships with all the other things that I've, other areas I've mentioned just now, my job or my view on how I'm doing. If my relationship with God is in the straight path and I'm with him and I'm walking with him, I feel like everything else is kind of, it just falls into place. It's like, I don't know, it's just beautiful that way, where I live my life for him and I put, my life's purpose into his hands, and he really does take care of the rest. And I've been learning to let go more and more of control and stuff like that. But yeah, that's one thing I've learned. Wow.
So that was your response, David?
Mouthful.
Quite a lot there, but a lot of good stuff. So what do you think? Just to reiterate, the question was, what have you learnt about your key relationships with others, with parents, with siblings, and with extended family, with friends, with God?
I think I agree with everything that I've shared a year ago. Things that what have I learned from the past year? Maybe friendships are so important because, like, I guess in Australia, in Sydney, lockdown, it seemed like it was finished at the time. Like we're coming to the end of it, but it came
Whenever
back
you
for season
said,
2
like,
this year.
the amount of times last year that you would say, yeah, we're coming out of the end of lockdown and like COVID's coming to an end. And I would just be like, I'd just stay silent. I wasn't saying anything. And you can go back, you can listen. And whenever David says that, I always just say nothing. Because I'm just like, look, I pray that you're right, bro. But sadly you weren't.
That's just me. Yeah, I guess, yeah. But yeah, you need your homies through this time. Like, I think about people who might not have people to talk to, or don't have those type of relationships. Those are the people that are like really struggling. So yeah, homies are important. Things that's changed. I have moved out. I was sharing like, I'm thinking of moving out. I have moved out, and it's gone to improve the relationship with my parents. Actually, today I met them at a park around Concord, just to have a picnic. I haven't seen them, like them two together, like all with the family, in 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so like all together. I might have seen like my sister here and there, my mom, like I might visit the shop, but being all together, like it was awesome, man. Like we took photos, we're like having brunch, like having sandwiches and that. And like, yeah, like I think like looking at it now, we just like, I kept talking about becoming an adult, becoming a man. Like with my mom's words that she spoke to me today, she was like, you're not a child anymore. Like you're your own person. You're an adult. So like we trust everything that, like we trust that, you'll be on the right path as long as you keep continuing to walk with God as you are doing. And like, I'm like, man, I'm a big boy now, but then at the same time, it's like, made me realize that because I'm a grown up, I need that space from my parents. And like, that was a big realization. So that like, I remember sharing with you time and time, like I wanted to have those meaningful moments when I do spend time with my parents, to be actually one that is, a good one, and not filled with like fights and arguments and stuff. And like, praise God, like that's what I was able to go through today, or like experience, was like just a time of like true joy, just catching up, like hitting jokes here and there. Like my dad tried to do a home haircut, and like I was just roasting him. I'm like, what have you done? And like, yeah, man. And God, like, yeah, like you were saying, you were sharing earlier about how, people say it's easier when you realize like you're not in control, but you were saying how, in reality it's not. And I think I do agree with you to a certain extent. But I guess for me, it's like, yeah, I'm not in control. I get to make my own decisions. I make my own choices. But like, for me, it's like, in the end, yeah, like it truly is God who is in control. Like, as I reflect on everything that's happened in the past year, like, yeah, for me, it's a very freeing thing to, like, as I said a year ago, to let go and just trust God. The path that God has set for me is one that is good, and I trust Him for that. And I just need to live faithfully to Him and His word. But yeah, not much has changed. Things have changed, but not much has changed.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's come that time in the podcast, David, where we're going to switcheroo, and I'm going to ask the questions and you answer first. So question 4, what are a couple things that you would like to change about yourself, and what directions do you need to take to keep growing? And this is your answer from 1 year ago.
My head is, first thing is laziness. I think laziness is the biggest enemy and friend that I have for my life, where a part of me growing up and becoming a man, I feel like the first thing I need to kind of really fight against is laziness. I feel like everyone, like a lot of people can agree with that. Not even when it comes to manhood, but just growing up as a person. It's like the first thing I want to really change and work on about myself is my laziness, my excuses, the amount of time I waste or spend resting, that I like to call resting, which is not necessarily, which is good at times, but I over rest a lot of the time, and I'll be lying to myself if I say I don't do that. So laziness is first. Second thing is I've built up a sense of, once I've started to walk with God's word, it's sixth year now. Was a fifth year, sixth year now, and there's a growing sense of self-righteousness that I have, where it's so toxic, where I know better, I know what is right, I know what is good for people, I know what you're doing wrong, which is so toxic, and I just really hate, and I really want to just cut off from my way of thinking, which is so funny to me, because it's like I'm reading God's word to better myself, to become a person who loves God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love others, love my neighbor as myself. But I'm becoming an expert in pinpointing people's errors while being blind to my own. So that's something I really want to grow in, where I'm not blind when it comes to my own mistakes, and I'm an expert at pinpointing others' mistakes. So
you're talking about pride.
Yeah, man. It is pride, where where I feel like what I want to grow in is being extra gracious is the word I want to use right now, is gracious towards others, and become extra harsh on myself, where it's like, you could do better. You could one up in how you can show this person love or charity or, patience. But yeah, that's me.
David, that was your response from 1 year ago.
Wow. I think some things still need to improve. I think I can, I still feel a bit lazy, but maybe I'll give myself some credit and say I've gotten better at that as well. I feel more organized after moving out. I mean, I'm cooking more. I'm taking care of myself more. I'm a bit more considerate, or not considerate, a bit more mindful of my health. So improvements there, but definitely I need to get better at not being lazy. I think the self-righteous thing that I was just talking about, I've gotten a lot better at that. Yeah. The self-righteous attitude and this prideful mindset has definitely decayed. So, it's really good. I think it's really good. I could definitely still improve, but...
yeah, I think you're still pretty up yourself, to be honest.
Thanks for that. It's very...
just joking. No, you definitely have improved.
Yeah, so... yeah, not much there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to break up your groove.
No, that's okay.
It's interesting when you talk about being harsh on yourself. Like, to me, like, I just get major red flags when I hear you say, like, oh, I need to be more hard on myself, because, like, for me, I have, like, the opposite problem. Like, I need to always be easier on myself. And so I guess, like, just a word of warning with that is be careful you don't take that too far, because it's much easier to sort of get a little bit more tough on yourself than it is to become less tough on yourself. So, yeah, that's the only thing. Whenever I hear you say that, I always think, yeah, I just get a red flag, because in my head, whenever I hear stuff like that, I have to, like, watch out for it. So, yeah, just be careful with that one.
Yeah, I think it was a poor choice of words on my end. So maybe tough on yourself isn't the right word, is like, because see how I was just like talking about, like I pinpoint the mistakes that people make, and I like, very corrective type of attitude.
Yeah.
I think a better way I could have worded it is like, be more reflective on how I am to others, and be better at being a better person to others than being obsessed with how others can be better.
Yeah.
I get so that. Tough on myself wasn't the best word, but yeah, definitely. Like, even as I was hearing myself speak, I was like, where are you going with this? And I'm like, right, that's what you meant.
Okay.
But yeah, what and then I guess now a couple things I want to change about myself. What directions do you need to take to keep growing? Oh boy. There's so much, man. But if it's one thing, like earlier I was sharing like how, like early in the questions I was sharing how I care more about, how other people perceive me. But I think just having more confidence in who I am. Yeah. Because I find that I am confident, but maybe the sense of like caring about what others think is a lack of like, I don't like using this word, like, but self-love in like who I am, which is very foreign to me, right? Because like I like, for the 20 odd years that I've been living, like I love myself, man. But it's like, I think like
I cannot get enough. It is good to be me. Being David is my biggest gift I've ever been given, to be honest. It's just awesome.
No, but for real, like it's so foreign to me. But I guess like reflecting on the reason why I was thinking that way is maybe I was not liking how I was, and maybe be more confident in who I am. Like, I got my skills, I got my talents, but there's areas that I lack. But that's with everybody, and I just gotta, accept the fact that maybe there's areas I just gotta get better at. But it's not a competition. Like, life isn't a competition. It's everyone's made uniquely, everyone's broken, everyone's imperfect, but like, you get to decide how you take on each day. Like, that's your responsibility. So yeah, man, that's something. Yeah, just to own myself again, I guess, as weird as that sounds.
No, man, it's a good answer.
But
okay, well, sorry. Did you have more?
No. Yeah, how about you?
Okay, well, I was going to say, let's hear what I had to say 1 year ago. I don't like the idea of changing myself. I like the growing bit, but
change comes with growth, Jack. That's how I want to see it.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm just getting a bit too word focused on this question, but I have a negative response to this question. It makes me want to say that I wouldn't change anything about myself, and that I want to just continue on the trajectory of growth that I'm on. But I know that that's kind of missing the point of the question. What am I trying to grow in? I think I'll put it that way. That makes me feel more comfortable.
Sure, whatever makes you answer the question.
Half an hour later. I'm trying to grow in my sense of comfort in myself, and my sense of comfort in the process of therapy. And I don't mean it healing. That's not therapy, healing. I want to become more... Oh, no, it's not healing, because it's not just healing. It's also about bringing up the wounds. I want to become more comfortable in bringing up things and processing them. I want to build a more rigid belief in myself so that it doesn't get shaken by the smallest things.
Sure.
I guess I want to become more confident in my value and also in my journey, so that I don't go from like keep fluctuating between feeling like I'm on the right track and then going like, what am I doing with my life? And I recognize that I'm in a very transitional period of life, and because of that, there isn't much certainty, and that's kind of just how it is going to be at the moment. But yeah, I'd like to keep it. Yeah, it's hard to say because it's kind of just keep growing in my value system basically, and my value system comes down to well, it's very intertwined with Ignatian spirituality, which is like generosity, service to others, humility, compassion, honesty, things like that. A man for others. That's what I want to keep continuing to build, and to keep like improving myself so that I can in turn serve others to a more effective and efficient extent. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this is a really unsatisfying answer, but I just don't like the idea of changing things about like that question feels like, I don't know, maybe I'm just like working so hard on not picking out the things that I dislike about myself and just trying to focus on the things I like about myself. That's something I want to grow on, be able to have more of a positive outlook on myself, because I seem to be able to do that with other people. Although I think David and I were talking just before we started, and I acknowledged that there was someone that I'm quite resentful over that we were talking about. And I said, I don't want to be resentful of him, but he's just done a number of things that have really gotten under my skin.
That's grind these gears.
I find myself resenting him significantly. And I want to maybe reach more of a balanced state so that I don't just go from like see the best in person, see the best in the person, see the best in the person. Nothing's good about that person. Like I want it to be more of a like a smooth transition, because I really do for a long time hold on to like all the good things about people for a really long time, and then eventually it's like you just flick a switch and it's just like no, they suck. Like, and that's too extreme. So
yeah.
I'd like to continue to try see the best in people, but also
that's a good
maybe be more forgiving.
Yeah,
be more forgiving as well.
Yeah.
I think that's once people have really pushed me far enough, I get really like set in my ways. Like I get quite like, because I'll let people sort of, you know, treat me badly for a certain amount of time, but then once they cross a line, which I might like my imaginary line of what's acceptable in a relationship, once they cross that line, it's like they're irredeemable almost, and I don't really like that. That's like way too high standards to have for other people. We're all human, and I want to get better at forgiveness. Forgiveness. So I would like to grow in that's something that maybe I'm not focusing enough on at the moment, is improving my ability to forgive. So there you go. There's my answer.
Interesting.
We got there in the end.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, okay.
we were just like, as I was listening through your last year's answer, we were both just like giggling and like laughing at it, because it just brings back all these memories from the conversation we had. But listening back to yourself from a year ago, Jack, like where do you think you're at now, and like, you know, what would you say today?
Well, I guess the question is, what are a couple things you'd like to change about yourself, and what directions do you need to take to keep growing, if I can bloody say it. One of the things I said at the start was I wanted to get better at bringing up wounds to be able to process them. I wanted to get better at that therapeutic process. And I do feel like I've gotten better at that. I do feel like I've become more, and I think I've had to, because I've just realized there's so much under the surface that I had no idea about. And it's just amazing how the human brain can just compartmentalize these things until you're ready to deal with them. And like, because when you're a kid, you're just not able to conceptualize some of this stuff. And it's fascinating the way that the brain works like that. And I do feel like I am better at doing that now. I'm more comfortable because I feel like, okay, this is something that I'm just realizing now, I guess, is that at that point, each time something new came up, I felt a little shattered because I felt like, great, like, once again, I thought that I had more together, but I don't. And like, but now I'm kind of at the point where I don't hold any kind of ideas that I've got all my shit together. Like, and so when something new comes up, I don't feel that sense of like disappointment. I don't feel that sense of like, oh, I thought I was past this, because I know that I'm not. And so when this stuff comes up now, if anything, it's just helpful, because it's just like, well, I spoke to Amelia about this recently. There's two different reactions, and they're complete opposite of each other. The first one is, that makes sense, and it brings me a sense of comfort. Like, that makes sense. I understand that a little bit more about myself. That's another piece in the puzzle. The other side of me just goes, far out, another thing. Like, I'm just exhausted. Like, not from a sense of disappointment, but just in a sense of like, can I just have a break from like recalling negative memories or recalling like different things of the past that apparently affected me more than I realize? Like, and because it's exhausting, and it's a step forward in a sense, because you're like, well, I understand more about myself, but it's also kind of almost a step back, because it's like, now I've got more to process. But I suppose that very nature is processing to bring it up in the first place. But in general, that therapeutic process, again, is much more smooth now, and I'm much more comfortable with it. I also said I wanted to develop a stronger belief and more positive outlook of myself. That hasn't happened. I feel like that's probably worse than it was last year, if I'm honest. Maybe I have a better understanding of who I am, but I definitely don't believe in myself more or have a more positive outlook on myself. I do at times, I'm getting better at times to acknowledge good things about myself, and that's something that I really struggle to do, and I'm getting a bit better at that. And Amelia is helping me by sort of encouraging me when I do that, to help me like, point out, to help just like sort of affirm me when I do that, to try and create a positive feedback loop to encourage me to keep doing those positive habits. But yeah, that hasn't worked out the way that I wanted it to a year ago. This idea of improving myself so that I can better help others, which is what I said, I think that where I was then, that was a good goal. Currently, I'm kind of just more focused on improving myself, just to be able to be the best version of myself, and not necessarily thinking of the next step, which is to serve others, because it's hard to balance those two at the same time, because sometimes what you do for yourself isn't necessarily the best thing for others, and that's tough. But sometimes you have to make those tough decisions just to sort of long term be in a better place, and then be able to serve others more. I know that doesn't really make sense, but I hope you guys can understand what I'm saying. And the last thing that I said was to get better at forgiveness. And I think I've gotten a bit better at forgiveness. Not way better, but I think I've gotten a bit better at forgiveness. Like holding on to things less. And I think that comes from what I was talking about way back at the start, when I was talking about a bit of detachment. Like, I'm much less attached to everything that happens now than I was, and I think that's partly COVID. COVID's done that to us. It's made us have to detach a little bit from what should happen, because nothing that should happen happens anymore. So we've had to just accept that, like, those of us who want to float instead of sink have just had to accept that, like, stop trying to plan for everything, because you never know. You really don't know what's around the corner, and you hope for the best. And I wouldn't say hope for the best, expect the worst, but you don't expect anything, I guess. You just expect to find out when you find out. And I think that ability to lower my expectations of the world has probably helped me lower my expectations of people as well, which is still high, and that's something that I have to look at. And that probably just reflects the high expectations I have of myself. In terms of what I would like to change about myself from this point, I really don't know, to be honest. I really don't know. That's a really hard question where I am right now.
Yeah.
I just want to always be striving to be a better man, but I feel like that goal has had to take the back seat currently, and I feel like I'm really struggling to think about long-term goals for myself, of who I want to be, which is going to make the next, like the last question, really hard when we get to that. But basically, what I'm currently thinking about is how to operate from day to day, and how to react when my mental health takes a dip, and how to appreciate when my mental health is good. And that's as simple as things are for me at the moment. It's just a day-to-day existence, and it's nothing really more than that. So in terms of what changes I want to make in my life, I want to become better at appreciating things when things are good, and I want to become better at processing when things go badly. It's as simple as that.
That's a good one, man.
David, the next unless you have any comments on that first.
No, I think, just like the last thing you were just sharing, like, I think that's a good goal to have, because like it's on a positive note, you know. I think like hope and optimism, these are words that you know, don't come as naturally to you as it does to me. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah,
but
that's definitely fair to say.
Yeah, it's good to hear it coming out of your own mouth. You know, it's something that you want to be able to.
Yeah, and I guess just what you're saying there, David, is I want to get better at hope again, because I feel like I've lost hope a lot, and I want to get that back, and that's so important to me. I don't really know how at this point, but I'm just trying to steady the ship right now, really. And like, if you're to extend that metaphor, as I do love an extended metaphor, sometimes too extended. If like you're in a ship, you know, and it's just completely turbulent out in the ocean, you're not thinking about getting to where you're going to be going. You're thinking about getting out of the storm. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm not thinking about long term. I'm just thinking about how can I steady the ship? How can I get to a place where I'm secure enough that I can spring forward? Because right now, if I tried to spring, I could go anywhere and it might end up really bad. So I'm trying to find some kind of stability before I'm going to be thinking about where do I want to be in another year's time, because I've got zero clue. Hopefully a better place. All right, David,
so
question 5. Any hurt or anger you carry in your life? And this is your answer from 1 year ago. Or anger you carry in your life?
No.
Okay, moving on.
No, but if I'm
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Artist Notepad.
No, straight up though, I don't think I carry any hurt or anger with me right now, which I think is a positive thing. I think it's a good thing.
That's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, man.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I think, I guess, like, for like on the topic of like forgiveness, I think that's something I've grown to really become good at. I'm an expert at giving a person the benefit of the doubt, or
see, I
giving
am
the
too,
best
up until a certain extent, and then I just switch.
Yeah, to an extent where I'm like, I try to sell myself a story of why someone has done something to the point where like it's like that doesn't make sense, but at the same time it's like they're people too kind of thing. So yeah, man, I don't think I hold any anger or hurt towards someone, because the last person that I've kind of, if I held a hurt from, was my dad, but I think this year it got really cleared out, so praise God.
That's your answer. Pretty damn good. What do you say about that?
Same here, man. Wow, like, yeah. If you could have just given me the question like right now and just say we weren't doing a time capsule, I think I would be answering it the same way.
Dude, it's almost like you and this guy are the same person. Crazy how similar you guys are.
Craziness. No, yeah. Getting better and better at just letting go, Don't let something that happened a day or two or months or years ago affect the present me, I guess. Yeah. And sometimes, like, I don't think I've hit a point in the past year where I couldn't forgive someone, or I had something happen where I can't forgive them. But it made me really question, and like it was challenging at times, like to forgive someone. But I think, like with time and with prayer, I was able to forgive. So, yeah, as I said last year, praise God.
Nice. All right. Well, here's my answer from 1 year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm a very angry person. I think I can be frustrated, but I see anger as sort of the next step after frustration. I have been angry in my life, but I think I have let go a lot of that anger, and I think that has come with practicing empathy and just, working out, just putting myself in other people's perspectives and trying to see people as humans, like you were saying before, David. But yeah, I don't think I carry any anger.
That's good.
In terms of hurt, I definitely carry hurt for sure. The most obvious example I can think of is in high school. I'm trying to think if I can explain this in a short version. So, yeah, basically with this situation at the end of year 11, my group decided to kick me out of the group, and I never really found out why they did it. And they did it in a way that was strategic and designed to inflict pain. And that sounds very melodramatic, but if I were to tell you the whole story, you'd be able to understand. David has heard the whole story.
It's messed up and it's twisted, man.
And I still carry a lot of hurt over that. It has continued to affect me even when I didn't think that it was still something that was involved in my life. But just over time, I've kind of realized how big of a role it has played. So that's definitely some hurt that I carry in my life for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure there is any anger. That's the main cause of hurt, I think, as well as just people drifting off. Like, I've had quite a few relationships in my life which have ended without closure, and there's been no kind of conclusion to them, and I've just been left to try and figure out what I did wrong. And those, when they've happened, like, it's happened a couple times, and because it's happened more than once, it definitely has caused some hurt and like caused some trust issues as well as some self-confidence issues, because I start thinking, what's so wrong about me that these people will just leave, you know? So yeah, that's definitely hurt that I carry. I don't think I'm angry. Not anymore. So yeah, that was my answer for any hurt or anger I carried in my life at that point. I guess, like I said, I'm really not a very angry person, not anymore. I definitely, there was definitely a time in my life when I was, but and the whole notion of being aggressive, like physically especially, is just so foreign to me now. I'm so much more I think anger, when I would get when I would get angry, that's probably just been replaced by hurt a lot of the time, or just frustration. But I very rarely bubble up and get to that space of anger. Like, that's such a fiery pit, and I just don't tend to fall into that pit anymore, thankfully. All the hurt that I mentioned there still existed. I think time is starting to heal those wounds, but if it is, it's happening slowly. And I feel justified to feel that way over what happened, because I've seen certain people, like even my therapist, react when I tell them that story, and like I haven't told it on here, and I don't plan to, and I feel justified in the pain that I feel, because the horror that I've seen on people's faces when I explain exactly what happened there makes me feel justified that I'm not holding on to something too long, or I'm not blowing it out of proportion. Like, I have every right to still feel hurt over what happened there, and I don't want to stay hurt, but some things are just really painful, and I don't think that will ever really leave me, and that's sad that happened to me, but it did. Any other hurt? There is more, but I'm not sure it would serve anyone to go to talk about it at this stage, because it would just be so raw and unprocessed. Not recent stuff, but this is kind of what I'm talking about stuff rising from the past that I'm picking up on, and like little memories coming back, and it's just like, whoa, like I've never, like you've stared at a picture one way your whole life, and suddenly you flip it upside down and you realize it's completely something different, and you're just like, that's why I remember that, because something that seems so like just irrelevant, like some memory that seems so like, why can I still remember that? And it's because when you look at it from a different angle, it means so much more, or something so different, and it has an emotional significance. And yeah, like, just there's been a lot that I've had to sort of pull up and just unpack about how it has shaped me and the way that I view me and view others. And it's something that I do really need to continue thinking about, because, my life isn't just going to pause until I've worked this out. Sooner or later, I'm going to be, becoming a father eventually. And I want to have a lot of this stuff sorted by the time that happens, or not sorted, but more sorted, I don't want to be dripping trauma over my children. And so I want to be able to not fix. See, once again, I mean, the word choice I'm showing, it tells something about the way that I view these parts, like of myself. I really need to accept them before I try and just like get rid of them, because that's what I've tried to do in the past, and that's why they get buried and become so difficult to process, because, because I haven't been loved the way that they need to be loved, those parts of myself. So the only person who can start to do that is myself. So that's a very broad and vague way of answering that question. But I'm not angry, which is good, because anger is so toxic. But yeah, there is hurt there, and I'm working on it. I'm not just letting it sit there and fester. I'm working on it. But yeah, need to sort of work out what it means before I can find closure in it. All right, let's move on to our very last question. Question 6.
Let's go, man.
And David, I've added one extra part to this, and maybe it will just confuse you, but I've added just one last question. So the original question is, what type of man do you want to develop into in the future? Any particular characteristics or virtues? How would this show in your relationships? And I've added on one extra question, which is, how can we help one another become this man? Because I think that would be a nice way to finish off this particular episode. So, nice, and here is your answer from 1 year ago.
The first word that comes up is integrity. So I want to be a man of integrity. And when I say that, it's like a man of my words, a man of good conduct, a man who doesn't just talk the talk but walks the walk. That sounds so basic right now, but
I get you.
Yeah, in all that I do, I think what I want to see is like, yeah, to be a man of my words, a man who lives my faith, lives with good standing with those that are around me and those that I meet. And yeah, and you mentioned leadership, Jack. I think when I think about the man that I want to develop into the future, I guess someone who leads his own children well, his own household well. So I want to have a son as my first child, but I don't get to decide that. But if I do, I think I really want to shape. Once I have a boy, I think I'll really pour everything to really disciple that boy into becoming a great man. I feel like in a lot of ways, the things that I've used to hold and be hurt from my own father was the way that he didn't guide me, or he couldn't guide me. So I want to be different in the sense of really being present with my child or my son, and yeah, show great leadership in my household.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I think that would speak to my other relationships as well. If I'm leading my house well, loving my wife well, people will be able to see that, so that we're not just a save face and show our best side to other people type of family, but yeah, be real outside and in kind of thing. Yeah. Wow. Wow, I went like to the future. Yeah.
What man do you develop into? So we're thinking long term.
Yeah. Yeah, things don't have a lot to add from that. Maybe a new thing that I've been thinking about lately is I want to grow in like generosity. Yeah. I think money was never something that was a big obstacle or big thing growing up. Actually, growing up, I grew up kind of like, not very wealthy, but we're in a much better place now. But like in terms of my own, like now as someone who manages his own finances, and I can see why like people want to hold, invest, and like buy, and like money is becoming a more real thing. You know what I mean? So, when I see myself being that way of like thinking money, how do I save better, blah, blah, blah. I guess like I still want to be quite generous in like what I have, whether it be money, whether it be material, whether it be like my services or how I can serve others. But yeah, not become so narrow-minded that I only think about myself or my close quarters. Yeah, like yeah, that's something. And everything else I said before, I think that still stays true. Maybe in the short term, yeah, integrity, I think still, like I want to always maintain that, and generosity. And like the question that you added of like how can we help each other? I guess I just need to, yeah, you brought up something that like earlier in our convo, like that kind of struck me, but I think it's true to an extent, because like, yeah, we talk and we share a lot, but I guess I don't let you into like more and more of my life. There's catch-ups for sure, but you know, the things that I really struggle with, the thoughts that I have, you know, the ups and downs, I guess we don't share the in-betweens. So yeah, maybe I just need allow you to help me to be better. I guess share more of the struggles that I might have, and maybe just share with those thoughts and those processes, so that whether you speak something into my life or you just listen, I guess we'll find out. But I guess as I share, you'll be able to speak into my life. So yeah, man. So how can we help? How can you help me? I guess I'll just have to share more with you. And I think that's something I'm happy to do. It's just not something that I've been mindful of, I guess. Yeah. Which is my bad, I think, as well. Like, I think those instances, like from like our relationship, just our friendship over the years, where I'm like, yeah, I feel really close to Jack, but you know, I can't say with confidence that we know each other super well, up to date, and you know, keep each other in check and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Have accountability in like what we share, even if it's on a pod or what we're saying. Like, are we doing good? Like, are we on track? Are we happy today? Are we sad? Like, you know, these type of things. So yeah, man, like have more real talks, I guess. Like,
yeah. I don't think it's on you. Like you said that. I don't think it is either. I think it's on both of us. Like neither of us really leave our comfort zone very often. Like within those conversations, and like it's crazy because we're having a 2.5 hour conversation about like stuff that we're struggling with and all these things, and like real deep stuff, right? But I suppose it's kind of just we go back to what I was saying before about, we tell each other this stuff after it's done and not when we're going through it. And we both do that to each other. And so I guess the next step is, and I'm kind of skipping my bit because I'm sort of answering the question now, like would be to let each other in as things are happening, as opposed to after, you know, to get a text and say, hey bro, like I'm actually having a pretty hard time with something at the moment. Can I give you a call at some point and we'll chat about it? As opposed to like, you know, a month after it's finished, just like, yeah, I didn't have the best month, but thankfully I'm in a better place now. Because that's how the conversations go. We let each other in post.
Yeah,
during,
that's so true. It's true.
Yeah, and it's not on you, bro. It's on both of us evenly. Like we both do that. So yeah, and unfortunately we don't have our weekly catch up anymore. So yeah, we need to just make more of an effort, I guess, to make sure we stay in touch as much as possible.
Yeah. Let's just be better friends, I guess.
Sorry,
let's be better friends.
Better friends? Easy.
Yeah,
easy. Keep it simple. All right, this is my answer from 1 year ago.
So I think this kind of does link back to what I've learned about myself, question 2, and that is that I can be a leader. I think for a long time, especially after what happened with like my group at high school, I just felt so like isolated, and I didn't feel like I could ever sort of live by example or lead by example or lead at all, like whether it was through communication or I don't know. I just felt like, okay, so my life is just going to be sort of drifting through, hopefully like with a nice blend of just under the radar and then being seen enough to make an impact. But like, I think I've kind of come back from that mentality of not being afraid to be seen anymore. And I think recently I've realized, okay, let me take a real hard look at what my like best skills are. And then once I've figured out what those are, how can I use those to do what I want to do with my life? Because really what I should be doing, and what I guess we should all be doing to some extent, is maximizing our impact with the gifts that we've been given. And I'm fortunate enough that one of the gifts I've been giving is communication. And so living under the radar shouldn't be an option for me. I should be someone who's talking about these sort of things, having important conversations with the people in my life, and challenging myself as well as the people in my life on how to improve, where to improve, and how to make a difference, not just in my life, but in everyone else's. And I think that kind of ties in with what I've been trying to do this year, which is, you know, like starting to talk about mental health a lot more, starting the self-care project, talking about these sort of things with you, David, on the Artist Notepad, and promoting artists, promoting people, and just like promoting positivity, I guess. But not being fake with it, like you said, like not being that perfect positive guy, being real and being vulnerable, and having days like today where I share quite openly that, you know, I'm not having the best day. Like, I'm not having a terrible day today. It kind of sounds like I have. Like, a lot of my answers seem really, really sad. And they are to an extent. But, I mean, I think I do feel more positive than like I sound like today. But I think I'm hopeful, but I'm realistic where I am now. And I think that sometimes we think that if you're hopeful, it means like you can't be bad now. And I wouldn't say I'm bad, but I'm just being realistic of this is where I am at the moment. But I have my sights set on the future and on the life that I'm going to try and achieve. And I don't think much is going to stop me from trying to achieve that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I am hopeful of where I could go, what kind of impact I could make. And I want to continue to live a life of service and still keep getting involved in, I guess, things like I did the last few days, retreats where I can help serve and help run and speak to, in this case, young adolescent boys about the things that I've learnt in the subsequent years from where they are at 17 to 5 years later at 22, which obviously I'm going to learn a lot more later on in life. But within those 5 years, I learned a hell of a lot of lessons. And if I can help guide those guys so they don't have to learn them the hard way without guidance, which I didn't have too much guidance navigating that region of adolescent manhood, then that's a great honor for me to be able to be a part of that process and maybe skip a few of the painful lessons and help them figure it out, how to live the way that they want to be living, with the few bits and pieces that I've learnt over the years. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, like if I can keep doing stuff like that, keep helping people, and keep trying to maximize my own relationships and have a family like you, I can't wait to have a family. It's funny, for a long time I was certain that like I wanted to, like, my ideal gender for my child would be male, but recently I think I've definitely swung more towards I want to have a girl more than anything. I want to have both, but I think the one that I'm looking forward to the most is having a girl. I don't really know why.
They say having a daughter really changes a man. And
softens him up.
There must be a reason.
Not that I need any more softening up.
You'll be too soft. You'll cry at everything.
Oh, man. I am kind of worried about that. I'm going to be that parent who just every time his kid does anything just starts crying.
Did you just say thank you?
But I can't wait to be a dad, and I can't wait to...
Same, bro.
I can't wait for a lot of things that is going to come with parenthood, as well as with, being a husband, and being a man, continuing to grow. And I think that's a nice way to finish it off. Let me just make sure I answered the question properly. What type? Yeah, I think I did. I think I did answer the question properly. How will it show in my relationships that I'll get better at being there for the people who I care about, and that they'll be able to trust me and depend on me and be able to share with me and come to me and talk to me. That's the sort of man that I've been striving for all year, really. And I think I've been that man in glimpses, obviously not like the husband or the father, but like kind of embodied that person more and more as the year has gone on. And I've never like been able to be that person permanently, but I've been able to embody that person from time to time. And I think the distance between the times that I'm being able to embody that person has gotten shorter as the year has gone on. So, So that was my answer to the last question. So a reminder, the question is, what type of man do you want to develop into the future? Any particular characteristics or virtues? How would you show this in your relationships? And obviously, how can we help one another to become better man, to become this man? And David and I have already talked about that. But first of all, I really just want to stop putting so much pressure on myself to be something. And that isn't basically related to anything I said in that clip, but that's just something that I was thinking of, kind of looking forward to this question. But I said we should all be maximizing the gifts that we've been given to serve others. And that's a real nice sentiment. And I like that a lot. Do I feel like I can do that right now? I don't know. The other day for the self-care project, I released a little 15-minute clip, just sort of talking about where I was. And I received a couple of really lovely messages of people feeling exactly the same way as me in similar positions of creators or leaders in what they do. And that brought me some sense of peace that even where I am, I can still provide some kind of assistance through my words. Because I feel like when I'm not in as good place, I just don't feel like I'm particularly helpful. And I still can influence people in a positive manner, even if it's not as many, even if it's not as broad a message. Maybe it only reaches one person in the room instead of 10, but that kind of makes it worth it, just the one person. Not having any meaningful work has been really tough. For me, a big part of my job is, like having really meaningful discussions with the young men who attend the school that I work at, helping provide them with guidance and support, and helping ensure that they know how important they are and how loved they are and how invaluable they are. And doing that kind of work is not always immediately obvious how rewarding it is, but when you remove all of it, I've definitely felt a sense of purposelessness for sure, and I've lost a bit of confidence in terms of what I can do in terms of that mentoring role. Because when I'm there, when I'm doing it every day, I feel a sense of confidence that I can actually make a difference in my work. But when I'm not doing it, and when I'm working remote, and like I'm doing a lot more of the administrative side of my job, as well as when I do talk to boys, it's over Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And so it's just, you can't connect with them in the same way, and you're not getting through to them, and you just don't feel like you're making an impact. And I lose a sense of confidence of like, that's when I get the imposter syndrome of like the podcast and stuff. Like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm clearly, like, I don't know. I start thinking, who am I to do it? And I forget that I have been given a gift of communication, as I said in that in that clip there. Like I've been blessed with the ability to communicate in a way that somehow brings good things out of people. Even when I don't know what I'm doing exactly, I'm just speaking and something positive happens. And I don't even know where that ability came from, because I haven't always had it. It just appeared sort of when I was about 19. It kind of just appeared that I could speak into people's hearts in a way that not everyone else can. And I'm super grateful for the ability to do that, because it's made such wonderful connections with people, and it's given me such beautiful opportunities where people think that I've given them a lot, but they have given me so much. And without the ability to use that skill, I have felt a sense of purposelessness. I have felt like, who am I to, have a podcast about mental well-being? Who am I to be, doing all these things? Like, I don't feel like a leader, because I ask myself, well, why should you be? And one thing I was thinking when I was listening to that snippet, and to all these snippets, is there's a massive contextual difference here, is that where we are in the world right now versus where we were then. And that makes a big difference. And I think that until this question, it hasn't really sunk into me how big of a difference that makes, particularly for me and where I am right now. Because, like I'm having to, and, I'm one of the lucky ones. I've kept my job, and I have to, from the next school term, I'm only going to be working 3 days. One day I have to take leave, and the other day I'm going to be redeployed, I think, to do manual labor. But like, I'm still getting work, and to me, that's just like, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's nothing compared to some people, and like, I have to constantly remind and also caveat that I'm in a really fortunate place. But at the same time, I'm not able to do the work that makes me feel alive, makes me feel passionate, makes me feel confident that I can make a difference. And that's what's so important to me, that I can do that. And so in that sense, I want to grow into a man, to finally answering the question, I want to grow into a man who is able to be considerate towards himself, more considerate, more compassionate, to acknowledge circumstance and say, look, stop comparing yourself to when it's bloody, 28 degrees in the sun, and everything's, sunshines, rainbows, puppy dogs. Like, you've just had a couple of awesome sessions with some young men, and you feel like you're doing a really good job. You don't have to wear a mask. Like, you're walking around free, not having to check yourself into Woolies every time you go in there. Like, all this stuff. They're trivial, but they add up. They get under your skin, and it's not fair for me to be comparing myself to that guy who doesn't have to do that stuff. And that goes for everyone. Like, being able to acknowledge that right now we're in a really difficult place in the world, and it's unfair of us to be judging ourselves based on the standards we had out of this world. And I think that as a live reaction, I'm actually getting a lot of comfort listening to the disparity between my reactions to these questions now and a year ago. That's bringing, not that we weren't in any COVID environment back then, but it's very different to where we are now. And I'm actually getting a bit of comfort to go, you know what, of course my answers aren't as quite as positive. They're not as hopeful, because I haven't been in the world. We haven't been in the world. And I haven't been able to do the work that I thrive in. So, yeah. To continue on this question, any particular characteristics or virtues? I just want to continue to emphasize the ones I already have. I want to continue to live out my values. As I said, I don't want them to change. I think they're good values, and I want to be able to just embody them in every aspect of my life. And, I'm engaged now. I'm engaged to my fiance, Amelia. And that means that I'm going to be a husband soon. And so there's no longer this idea of, well, when I'm a husband, it's like, it's now just, it's coming. So if I want to be you know. And to me, like, it doesn't make a difference. Like, well, now I'm a husband, so I have to act a certain way. No, I view it the same as being fiance, same as being a partner. Like, doesn't matter. You know, like I would endeavor to treat her in the best way possible, no matter what. But that the next step after husbandry is not that that's the right word. Husbandry means something else. The next step after being a husband is to be a father. For me, at least in my journey, and that's not the next step for everyone. And that's what I hope the next step will be, but I have no certainty over that either. But I need to start looking at these things and saying, you know, and I have been for a while. I've been reading about fatherhood since I was about 21, because I've been prepping for this, because this is like the biggest purpose I think I'll ever have in my life is to be a dad. The greatest purpose, I should say, not the biggest, the greatest. And the toughest one too, most likely. So I hope that in all my relationships, as a father, as a husband, as a leader, if I can be that I will be authentic, and I will be honest, and I will be truthful, and I will be open, and I will be empathetic, generous, compassionate, all these things that I value so highly. I just want to embody them. And I know I'm not always going to. I know I'm going to slip up. But that's what I strive for. And regardless of how much I slip up, that's never going to take away that goal to be that man as much as I can be. And if I am, then, well, that's a good man, I think.
Nice. Nicely said, as I said a year ago for a previous question.
So, David, we've been talking for quite some time now. I think this would probably be the longest episode to date, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, man.
Wow. This has been a trip down memory lane, and it's been positive for both of us, I think. And I think I made some good realizations towards the end there. I enjoyed my 6th answer. That was the one that I was happy with above all of the others. Part of me was dreading this because I felt like my answers would be all kind of less optimistic than last year's. And I didn't want to feel like I was taking a step back in every part of my life. But some of those things in the last answer that I was sort of talking out loud and just sort of making sense of definitely helped me feel more comfortable with where I'm at now versus a year ago. Because it is just a completely different context.
Yeah.
So I hope you receive some kind of how you say?
How say you?
How you say? I don't know. Closure. Well, I don't know. Some peace. Something positive from this conversation as well.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think it was a bit trippy at times because I'm like, some of the answers were kind of recycled, but at the same time, I think I learned a bit more about myself. I think the whole chat in itself was wholesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
really wholesome. Sweet, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother. Do a virtual
handshake.
Virtual handshake. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. All right, see ya. Thanks, guys, for joining. Whether you're listening on the Artist Notepad or on the Self-Care Project, thank you so much for joining. And in terms of the Self-Care Project, there is plans for a season 3, very early plans. So I want to, anyone who maybe was concerned from my last message that this would be the end, there is currently plans in the works for next year. To start of next year, hopefully we'll be hearing some more from the Self-Care Project. And as for the Artist Notepad, it's just still at this point an extended hiatus. We're not sure. We would love to come back, and I'm sure we will definitely do little bits here and there. Maybe if something big happens in our lives, just to catch up and have a chat. or if an awesome album comes out that we both
Yeah.
love, maybe we'll catch up to have a chat about that or something like that. But it's definitely going to be far more sporadic at the moment until we have more of a permanent idea of where we want to take this. So thank you guys for your patience, and thank you for all the support you give us on both these podcasts. I really hope you guys enjoyed the conversation that David and I had today and the answers that we had. And I encourage you guys to maybe try something like this with a friend or a family member that you have. You know, you can use these 6 questions, or you can use any questions that you want to use, and just really practice, you know, really opening up with each other and being as open and honest as possible. And, you know, obviously with someone you trust, and yeah, show them the parts of you that maybe you don't show very many people, because it's a special experience. And I hope it was special listening to us do the same. David, do you have anything to add before we wrap this one up?
I just want to say same here. That's it. No, but I think like it's important to have these type of conversations, man, where you just slow down and just listen, slow down and just open up. Yeah, that's all I just want to say. But thanks guys for tuning in, for sure. Hope we can catch you guys soon.
David. I hope so too. And as we do on the Artist Notepad, we'll end with peace.
Peace.